And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Wednesday, January 4th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer, and we are brought to you by PrizePicks. 12-game NBA slate on the docket for today. A little bit more than we had yesterday. We've got a lot to talk about. It took me 2 hours and 15 minutes to do the process show this morning. My voice is shot already. I've got this show and the deeper dive later tonight. So decent chance I lose my voice by the time this day is over, which in most people's opinion would be an incredible improvement for their lives. So be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how did your Tuesday shake out?
Not great. Didn't have enough OKC guys that torched Boston. Was overweight on some good plays, like Brook Lopez and Malcolm Brogdon came through, but Brogdon didn't even matter because 5 times as popular Jalen Williams still did better for OKC. Had too much Jordan Clarkson, too much Kelly Olynyk, so didn't go particularly well for me.
Yeah, I messaged you during the beginning of that OKC game, and I was just like, oh, that's looking good. Oh, that's looking good, because I had a pretty good stand on Aaron Wiggins, which ended up being like whatever. But I was like, yeah, he's looking decent. And then something happened where they were like, oh, Jalen Williams with the take. And I was just like, oh, man, I've been cheering for the wrong dude the entire time.
Aaron Wiggins was actually doing well early and ended up being fine. But
yeah.
Yeah, because I was over on him from OKC. I was over on Wiggins. I was over on Dort. I was even on Isaiah Joe. But then I was just like under on Mann, under on Giddey, under on Kenrich Williams, under on Jalen Williams.
Wasn't fun. Yeah, I was just like, look, I obviously don't take in a ton of Oklahoma City Thunder games for very, very obvious reasons. I was like, all these guys look the same. I was like, that doesn't look like a guy that I recognize, but I was super duper wrong. And ultimately, it didn't matter. I had a good night. Quite profitable. Had a run at the top. Was probably boxed out to first, thanks to Marcus Smart. But what are you going to do? I'm happy. We're on to today. There's no chance I'm playing this 12-gamer. I don't have the mental capacity for that one today. 4-gamer tomorrow with no Thursday night football. I'm hoping we get something decent. So
can we just get back to the schedule we had like a week ago where everything was 7 to 10 games?
Is that what you had last week?
It was either last week or the week before.
Either way, I would happily take that. I mean, I've been liking these like 4-game type slates, but 12 is just, it's not fun at all. You know what is fun? Breaking down all 12 of those games. You ready to do that?
Yeah.
Do we have ownership yet? Let me check. 2 minutes ago. Perfect timing, folks. Thank you to everybody on the back end for getting that one up for me. Let me paste that in and we can get started. That's some heavy ownership to Jalen Brunson. We will talk about that in a bit. And if Steven Adams is 37% owned today, just go to one of the other 97 centers that look like exceptional plays. All right, you ready? Let's do it. First game up for today. Memphis Grizzlies, 7-point favorites in Charlotte, 228 total. For the Grizzlies, we have Desmond Bane back. I mean, he's been back at least for a bit, but he's officially back for me personally because he was not back when I left. So it's good to have Desmond Bane, but Q tag on Zaire Williams, Q tag on Santi Aldama. No Brandon Clark in this one. We have Steven Adams projected for 37% ownership on DraftKings. That is ludicrous for today, but I do think that he is probably the best play on the Grizzlies. There's just no reason that he's going to be in a third of lineups today.
Yeah, it just strikes me as one of those spots where Steven Adams is underpriced. Like at 5,400, even if Brandon Clark were in, and you were getting like a low-owned Steven Adams, I'd be playing Steven Adams here. It's a good spot against Charlotte. It's, he's a fantasy point per minute guy. When he's not in foul trouble and it's not a blowout, you're getting like 28 to 30 minutes. That's one thing that's been, I think people are kind of missing on Memphis because they are in so many blowouts. It goes both ways. Like they basically just destroy every team they play, except for the game here and there where they just don't show up to play basketball and they get run off the floor. You very rarely, it seems like, and it's somewhat anecdotal. Like I haven't actually gone back to look, but it seems like every time I look at a Memphis like rotation, it's like, oh, nobody played the final 5 minutes because they were down by 20 or up by 20. And so I think people kind of sleep on how many minutes Steven Adams will play or does play in competitive games. And then taking Brandon Clark out, he should get more minutes. Like now you're going to most likely have Tillman as the backup center. I think instead of projecting like 28 to Adams, 20 to Clark, you probably go like 30 Adams, 18 Tillman, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree. And like, he very clearly looks good. And I don't expect that 37% number to exist throughout most of the day. We're going to walk through 23 other teams. 20 of them are going to have a mid-price center that looks like pretty good. That's going to show no ownership whatsoever. It's just going to naturally stabilize. But I do think he is the best point per dollar option on Memphis right now. And after that, I don't really see anything that I think is all that valuable. It's a 12-game slate, so you don't have to dig in too hard. Obviously, you can play Ja Morant in any scenario, basically ever, if you want to, so long as he's not limited. But for right now, for me, I don't anticipate getting much of the Memphis Grizzlies.
Give me Desmond Bane at 6,700 and 1% on, please.
Okay.
He played 28 minutes in his last game, sat out Memphis' most recent game. But on December 31st, Bane played 28 minutes, lost about a minute and a half to garbage time. I think it's likely that you're just back to his like 32, 33 minutes here. And he has been insanely good this year. I mean, he's not a $6,700 player at full strength. I don't know, if he's actually back to full strength tonight, but it's got to be getting close. And I certainly want to be there at low ownership when it happens.
Yeah, I have no issue with that, particularly in a GPP. I don't really know what to do with his minutes. I gave him 30. You could tell me that he plays, 34 or something. That would totally make sense to me. Great play at the ownership in a GPP. Do you see anything else here?
I mean, obviously you can play some Morant. 6,500 for Jackson's fine as well. There is, I guess, there's a bull scenario for Jaren Jackson where he gets backup center minutes here. I don't know if they'll go that route, but they certainly could. Instead of just going 48 minutes to Adams and Tillman, you could certainly see 30 for Adams, 12 for Tillman, 6 for Jackson, which would certainly boost his expected production. So, I think at 6,500, even if he plays his normal, all his minutes at the 4 and plays 28 minutes, he's going to look fine at 6,500 anyway. I do just think there's a little bit of an elevated ceiling for him because we could certainly see that rotation, even though it's not the one that I'm going to project.
Anything else for Memphis?
Nope.
Charlotte looks a little bit different today. They're going to be likely without Gordon Hayward. He is doubtful. Kelly Oubre is going to be out for a couple weeks. And Cody Martin, questionable for today. I don't believe he's played at all this season. If he did, it was one game, but I think it's been the entire season. He could potentially be back here, which opens up some things for Charlotte, one of which is getting a lot of ownership. And this one makes a lot more sense to me than the Adams ownership. 29% ownership going to Jalen McDaniels on DK at 4,400. They're just missing two guys that basically play his position. I think that he's going to fall into, 30 minutes or more if this one stays competitive. He's only 10% owned on FanDuel at 5,500. Obviously a much worse price, but still to me, a very interesting option. Let's start with Jalen McDaniels as what I would imagine to be a likely chalk option, although by the time this day ends, who the hell knows?
Yeah, I mean, who knows what else opens up, but one way or the other, he's going to project well with no Oubre, and we're expecting no Hayward. He's not a bad point per minute guy either. He's a 0.88 DraftKings point per minute guy. He's not a super high usage guy, so you're a little bit less concerned about him moving into the starting lineup and playing more minutes with LaMelo. His 0.88 DraftKings points per minute is only on 17% usage, but he's got about a 9.5% rebounding percentage. He's got a double-digit assist percentage. Kind of just does everything well. He's played 157 minutes with LaMelo on the floor this year. He's at 0.9 DraftKings points per minute. The rebounding rate goes down a little bit. The usage rate goes down a little bit, but nothing crazy. So assuming he's just playing, 30-plus minutes here at 4,400, it's just a really straightforward, minutes times points per minute equals very good for his salary type play.
Yeah, I'm getting to a ton of him right now, even on the FanDuel price tag, just as a guy with an MPE and a mid-tier price tag that's priced where he's clearly not priced on either site for the fact that he's going to be playing the minutes that he's going to be getting now.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, no one else is getting any ownership on the DraftKings side. Ball and Rozier are both about 10% owned on the FanDuel end. I don't have like a ton of interest in any of these other guys. Do you see anything else from Charlotte that you would call a priority for today?
No, not a priority. I mean, I think that's reflected in the ownership, like you said. PJ Washington at 5,600, 0.7% is the second highest piece on DraftKings, and that does look fine. He's playing 30 plus minutes as long as he can avoid foul trouble. Coming off of a game where he just played 34 and a half, you could see maybe a little bit more playing time without Oubre and Hayward as well. I do expect you to see like JT Thor in the rotation, but Washington is going to get some ownership, but I wouldn't say a priority on a 12-gamer. And then it's just your usual, if you want to take some shots at LaMelo at 10-2 or Terry Rozier at 7K, by all means. Mark Williams seems to have surpassed Nick Richards as the backup center, but he's also up to 4K. I think that's a pretty tough spot to get to on a 12-gamer. So I think basically any of the starters are fine, but McDaniels is going to be the one you get to first, and then Washington probably second.
Yeah, quick time to mention, and we talk about it a lot on these bigger slates. You can make a justification for any like 28 plus minute starter on any one of these teams today, barring any ridiculous like pricing change. If everybody's priced relatively normally, they're going to be like 5% owned, total random lineup filler. The key piece is going to be finding what we would consider to be the best plays, but like the LaMelo Balls and Ja Morants of the world are just available always.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're not going into a slate saying like, oh, the huge edge on this slate is that people aren't playing LaMelo Ball, because there's 100 other pay-up options that look similar to LaMelo Ball. But within an individual lineup, those types of plays are great because it's just like, oh, I have, your chalky Jalen McDaniels or Jalen McDaniels, and Steven Adams and whatever. And it's like, oh, well, instead of like on a 3-gamer where your differentiation play becomes Isaiah Joe off the bench, here it's like, oh, cool, I can play LaMelo Ball, and that's how I'm getting different. But it's still just not a piece you're building around in terms of having a ton of exposure to.
Game number 2, the Phoenix Suns, 5-point dogs in Cleveland, 221 total. Phoenix obviously without Devin Booker, no Cam Johnson, obviously still no Jay Crowder. And no ownership to speak of on the DraftKings side. 2% owned Chris Paul is the high watermark for Phoenix. Mikal Bridges is 6K on FanDuel, shooting guard, small forward. He gets to 10%. I've got a little bit of interest in Bridges today on the FanDuel side. I think that ownership makes sense. But this matchup against Cleveland, this total, the prices right now, I don't really like anything from Phoenix.
Yeah, same here. It's just another one of those teams like Chris Paul at 7,700, sure. Mikal Bridges should play a lot at 6,200. Ayton, gets a bump as well, but none of it looks very good.
No. I don't really have anything else that I want to add to this discussion. Like there's just nothing here for Phoenix. You would need to see more dudes be out.
Agreed.
Cleveland's slightly different. I'm a little bit more interested in their side. Darius Garland is doubtful for today with that right thumb sprain. Dean Wade is still out. We've got the Q tag on Evan Mobley. Both Garland and Mobley have missed their previous 2 games, but it looks like we could get Mobley back today. So as we look at this, we have Donovan Mitchell coming off of one of the best regular season games that have ever happened. He is 9,600 on DraftKings, 9,600 on FanDuel. Probably gets a couple extra percentage points of ownership just because of that last game. I don't find him to be like all that interesting. Still very good at 9,600. Falls into the Morant and LaMelo Ball category. Karis LeVert, though, 5,500 on DK, shooting guard, small forward. Seems like he's going to play a ton of minutes today. 13% ownership honestly feels a little light in my eyes.
Yeah, on one hand, because like the minutes should be there. Like you said, last game he played 34 minutes in regulation, 39 including overtime. I expect that he will start again regardless of Evan Mobley's status. I expect Love will be the one to go back to the bench if Mobley returns. So far this year, with Donovan Mitchell on the floor and Darius Garland off, LeVert's at 0.88 DraftKings points per minute, 22% usage rate, 22% assist percentage, 48.5% true shooting. So it's not like he is shot hot to get to 0.88 fantasy points per minute. It's just a minutes play, really. Donovan Mitchell is going to dominate usage when he is on the floor. And Donovan Mitchell played nearly every minute of regulation last game, playing about 45 in regulation. You're clearly not projecting that, but it is likely that, there's 10 or fewer minutes where Donovan Mitchell is not on the floor tonight. It is likely that Karis LeVert is out there for all of those minutes, which is worth noting, because if you say like Mitchell plays 38 minutes and Garland plays 34, then you're talking about around 33% of Karis LeVert's minutes coming in a situation where, he's averaged 1.02 fantasy points per minute this year instead of 0.88. So that is worth keeping in mind as well. But yeah, it looks like a good value. Donovan Mitchell at 9,600, plenty of guards around him at that price point. But without Garland this year, 499 minutes, 1.33 DraftKings points per minute, 34.5% usage rate, 31.3% assist percentage. Certainly a very high upside option, which goes without saying when he scored 71 actual points last game.
Yeah. And had, I think, 11 assists or something too. He helped create like 99 points or some sort of really dumb number that was awesome. It was fun to see. I don't have anything else really that I want to add. I do think LeVert is going out at least a little underrepresented on DraftKings as of right now, given the price and position, but otherwise no real priorities for me coming out of Cleveland.
Yeah, same boat. Like I always mention Jared Allen, but he's just another center in that price range. If Evan Mobley misses and you have a $5,700 Kevin Love starting again, he played like 33 minutes in regulation last game, give or take. So clearly physically he's fine and he would look pretty good. But if Mobley's back, I don't expect him to get enough minutes that I would want him at 5,700.
All right.
Similarly, if Mobley's out, you also got a bunch of minutes for Chetty. He is 3,900, so he would look pretty good. If Mobley is back, though, I don't need to go there either.
Okay. Oklahoma City is on a back-to-back. They're 2-point dogs in Orlando, 228 total. I assume Shea is just playing today, and we could have seen that one coming last night, but who the hell knows? I don't really know how else to project this team, but I don't think it matters. Assuming Shea plays today, you can play a little bit of Shea, a little bit of Josh Giddey, and then I would ignore the rest of this team. Do you have anything you want to add for OKC, even though we don't even know what their team is going to look like today?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at right now. If we assume that Shea is back and then the rest is just everybody that was available last night, then it's kind of like if you get to some Giddey, cool. If you get to some Shea, cool. Lou Dort at 5,100 is playable, but nothing exciting. And I wouldn't really care about anything else on the team. If you get Shea out, obviously that changes. If you get them resting guys, obviously that changes. On the other side, do pay attention. Like if we were to get news that Shea is out, still pay attention to what they do with the G League guys, because if they add, 2 guys back from the G League tonight, then and Shea is out, then obviously the team still looks better, but they don't look as good as they did last night. So there's just a million different ways this team can look right now.
All right, to Orlando we go. Jalen Suggs still out. Franz Wagner still suspended. Bol out, health and safety protocols. Mo Wagner still suspended. Where did you land on Mo Wagner's consciousness during that?
I didn't really see it.
Okay, interesting. That was not the answer that I was expecting.
I did not really watch sports for 5 days.
Yeah, that was the only thing that I really saw was. It doesn't matter now.
I saw the replay, but I just didn't watch it enough to have an opinion.
I know you tend to watch replays of potential unconscious people, so
no leg snaps.
Okay, gotcha. So much better.
Yeah.
John Isaac out, Chuma Okeke out, Admiral Schofield and Kevon Harris still suspended. So in terms of active bodies, Markelle Fultz, Paolo Banchero, Wendell Carter Jr., Cole Anthony, Gary Harris, Bamba, Ross, Houston, Hampton. Orlando has 9 guys for today. We're seeing 38% ownership going to Mo Bamba at 4,300 on DraftKings. Wendell Carter's at 24% ownership. Cole Anthony's at 23. Paolo Banchero is at 13. We're seeing comparable ownership on the FanDuel side for some of these guys. I have no idea who can play real minutes, who's going to play a lot of minutes, what is going on with Orlando, other than Paolo Banchero should be the guy that plays the most minutes for Orlando. Start wherever you want here, because this is probably the weirdest spot on today's slate.
Yeah, I mean, this one's really difficult just because there's so many changes. Like, and there's nothing you can really go back and look at and say, you know, oh, well, this is what they do when this guy is out, because they're just basically hockey line changing suspensions at this point. So you're kind of guessing, but there's no real reason to think Mo Bamba can't play actual minutes, like as the starter. He's 4,300. I think that the ownership coming into him makes a lot of sense. 38% on DraftKings. You know, again, you're running into that territory where he's going over-owned in the sense that he's not going to be optimal 38% of the time, but he is still just going to be a very high percentage piece that you can build around. So he looks good at 4,300. Wendell Carter Jr. Wish he had power forward eligibility, but center only 6,400, getting 24%. I think that looks good as well. Like, he should be very involved offensively. He basically has to contend with Banchero. I mean, he still has to contend with Banchero, Fultz, and Anthony, but you should be getting over a fantasy point per minute from Carter. Anthony at 5,300 looks a little bit too cheap. And then you get to Banchero and Fultz, where I think that they're pretty much correctly priced, but there is still clearly a massive ceiling for an 8K Banchero or a $6,600 Fultz, especially given the likelihood that they are going to play a couple more minutes with this team so shorthanded. So for me, I think the priorities are Bamba, Anthony, and Carter, but assuming the starting lineup is Anthony, Fultz, Banchero, Carter, Bamba, I think all five of those guys are strong plays.
I actually think Gary Harris starts over Anthony, but not that it matters.
Yeah,
like they're both going to play. They're both going to have to play a shit ton anyway. So
yeah, I could certainly see
that. Look, like basically everybody's going to have to play a minimum of 18 minutes or something in that regard, or everybody else just looks like even better plays if they really hate someone like RJ Hampton. How many minutes do you think Wendell Carter Jr. can play today?
Yeah, I was trying to get back to a game where he had played, and it's
same for Harris too. Okay. They were both out for ages. They both played 3 games of relatively minimal playing time. Like, it's tricky.
So we're doing the thing where I guess I have like an ESPN tab open somewhere and it is talking.
Just so you know, that there will be a little icon on the tab that shows
the
audio.
I have a lot of tabs open and I can't find it.
Well,
all right. Well, we'll figure that one out in a minute. But
here, I'll talk until you find it. How's that?
I got it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, Carter played 24 2 games ago.
Yeah.
I would guess he can play like 28, 30.
Yeah, I gave him 28. I don't feel great.
Harris played 23. Like, I would guess he can play the same.
Yeah. I feel like Gary Harris comes back from these games and sometimes he just like automatically plays 36 minutes. And I just don't know where else to, like, I don't feel comfortable just picking and choosing the dudes that I think are about to play 30 something minutes. But I think like 2 of these guys that I don't know if they can are just going to play like 32, 34 minutes. And those are going to be the guys that you wanted from Orlando. But I don't have a great feeling on who that's going to be. Like, if you tell me that it's Terrence Ross, it's like, okay, well, it's Terrence Ross today. It's just weird. Is there anybody from Orlando that you wouldn't want to get to that isn't RJ Hampton?
Is there anybody on Orlando that okay. I heard you wrong. Like, I heard you backwards. I was like, everybody? No, I mean, Houston and Ross, I'm not super interested in either, but like
you'd have to see one of them starting, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Like they all have paths where it's like, oh well, the game broke to where, you know, Markelle Fultz got in foul trouble and it became the RJ Hampton comes in and gets hot and goes off game. But like, you can say that for any of those 3. I think I'll pretty much be sticking, assuming the starting lineup is one of the 2 that we mentioned. I'll pretty much be sticking with Carter, Anthony, Bamba, Banchero, Fultz, Harris.
On my dummy crunch, I got to about 25% of Banchero, Bamba, and Gary Harris. Gary Harris, 3,800 shooting guard, small forward on FanDuel. And then small amounts of kind of everybody else. But definitely one to keep an eye on, and we definitely need that starting lineup. But Orlando is just going to be a priority today. Anything else from the Magic?
Nope. Did you think that Wagner was unconscious?
I thought he went out for sure.
That was my, like, in the, you know, couple of times I watched it just, you know, at full speed, I thought he did, but I didn't put
even
much
just like the
stress on.
way that whoever was trying to like protect him on the bench when he was like laying on the chair. Like no one at that point in time was then looking down at him, like chirping. Like they kind of just let him go until he got back on his feet. He didn't look great on his feet after that. And it just felt like a really weird thing to sell the entire time.
Right.
Like at some time you snap out of like just being fake about it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I had the same. I think it was an assistant coach for Detroit standing next to him, but kind of just like immediately stepped in and was just like, all right, leave him alone.
Yeah, it's just weird. Alrighty. Schedule for the rest of the day.
We just get Shays out.
I doubt it. I figured that message was just completely incorrect.
Yeah. Here's the
yeah. I mean, why? What surprise there? NFL strategy show.
Is the FanDuel has the O tag or something.
Oh, without a question. And it's going to be there for hours until they put out an injury report, too. So, NFL strategy show coming up at 11 a.m. Then we take a little bit of a break until Adam and I come back at 4:45 for the deeper dive, running through this one again, where we should have a ton more information after injury reports and everything get updated. Live Before Lock will be at 6 p.m. That'll take you all the way up until 7. And then you'll get PGA Live Before Lock at 8 p.m. Ben Raza here, breaking everything down. Golf is back, Tournament of Champions. So make sure you're watching everything that we have. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. You guys know the drill. Indiana Pacers, 7.5-point dogs in Philly, 232 total. This is actually one of the easier things to talk about. The Pacers don't really deviate too much from the script. Chris Duarte is questionable. Isaiah Jackson is now with the G League, but kind of just know the Pacers projections, and no one's really pulling all that much ownership except for our boy Jalen Smith, who does not feel like he should be 10% owned on this particular slate. He probably shouldn't be owned at all, honestly. I don't really have much interest in Indiana other than, clearly play Tyrese Halliburton if you want.
Yeah, I mean, Halliburton, Turner clearly are good. When Turner avoids foul trouble, you're getting 30 to 32 minutes. When he doesn't, you're getting less. But I think he's a very good tournament pivot. Like, he's one of the centers that you can use here where, if Wendell Carter Jr. is going to pull 24% at basically the same price and Miles Turner is going to be 6 or 4, they are not wildly different plays. If you can find the money, it's $1,200 difference. But, if you can get from a 38% owned Adams to a 4% owned Turner without sacrificing much elsewhere, that's a good pivot as well. But at the same time, he's just not going to project quite as well. I am interested in Jalen Smith, though. They've been using him as the backup center now behind Miles Turner. So it's just this situation where if Turner plays 32, Smith's playing 16. Turner plays 25, Smith's playing 23. The big thing for me, though, is that Jalen Smith has power forward eligibility, and he's only 3,500. Also, Isaiah Jackson going to the G League does matter because we were getting you've been getting this rotation where Smith's the backup center, but then just often enough you're getting, but Isaiah Jackson took 4 or 5 of the minutes instead of it all going to Jalen Smith. So Isaiah Jackson being gone does have a little bit of impact just in terms of you can feel more comfortable that you're getting the rotation you expect. 10% is relatively high, but also he's essentially min-salary and playing 16 to 22 minutes and getting over a fantasy point per minute.
Is there anything else that we should be touching on here? No. Didn't think so. The Philadelphia 76ers on the opposite side looking pretty similar. They have everybody that's normally available just available. No one reaches double digits in ownership. 10% going to Harden at 9,800. That is a $10,300 price tag on FanDuel. Highest owned guy on the FanDuel side is 4% owned Embiid at 11.6. I thought that I was going to like the Sixers a little bit more. I mean, clearly it's the same sort of situation as we talked about for a bunch of these teams. Play Harden, play Embiid if you want. To me, no priorities here.
Yeah, same. I think it's just because there are so many other good spots on the slate. James Harden and Joel Embiid clearly look fantastic here, and it shouldn't surprise anybody if they have massive games against Indiana. But you just can't – it goes back to what we were just saying about LaMelo and Morant. I think that they're both good plays, but if you tell me that, the huge edge on this slate is that people are playing John Morant or LaMelo Ball or whoever else instead, or, Donovan Mitchell instead of James Harden, I don't think you're able to project those guys that well. You can differentiate them. So it's just a pile of guys where it's just all right, these are all really good players that are going to play a ton of minutes and average a ton of points. But I don't really want my stand necessarily to be that I need to pinpoint the specific one because they all look so similar.
I agree. I don't have anything else that I could possibly add here. So we shall keep it moving to the San Antonio Spurs, 9.5-point dogs in New York, 228 total. Boy, were the Knicks on one while I was out. They are just winning everything and anything they can get their hands on. Q tag on Devin Vassell for today. Otherwise, we have a largely full-strength Spurs team. Unfortunately, Keita Bates-Diop is going to be out, so I can't imagine how the Spurs are going to make it through the day. But as I look at their current ownership projections, 5% going to Jake Puddle is the high mark on DraftKings. 4% to Trey Jones is the high mark on FanDuel. Don't really see a scenario where I'm going to be getting to a lot of the San Antonio Spurs.
No, me neither. If you want to pivot some Steven Adams to Jakob Poeltl, by all means, but at the same time, Adams is going to project better. Trey Jones is relatively cheap. So is Sohan, but matchup's not very appealing. There's a million other guys to get to. I'm not overly interested in the Spurs. The only thing I would say that is interesting is that all 5 of their starters are just at price points where you look and go like, oh, that's a little bit lower than normal.
Yeah.
And they're not getting ownership, but only so much you can do with that still.
Well, the New York Knicks, we've got a very different story here. They look, or at least some of these pieces look exceptional. We're still without RJ Barrett for another day. Obi Toppin is still doubtful. Derrick Rose is questionable. Tibbs is running these starters into the ground right now, whether that's Randall, Grimes, Quickly, Brunson, Mitchell Robinson's playing 30-plus minutes a game. We've got Jalen Brunson, 41% owned on DraftKings and on FanDuel. I think that is largely warranted. To me, one of the best plays of the day. Similar story for Quickly, about 25% owned on both sites. Love him. They were both top 5 guys in my contenders videos. I'm a little surprised to see the minimal amount of ownership going to Randall, but 5% at 10.5 kind of makes sense. He's 9,900 with power forward center on FanDuel. I'm getting to a bunch of him in that regard. And then much like we're going to mention on other spots, like if you want to play Mitchell Robinson at 3% ownership, he's just going to look like a great tournament pivot to the Steven Adams of the world. I love getting to the Knicks today.
Yeah, same. In particular, Brunson and Quickly, both pulling plenty of ownership, but they're both going to look good. We have on DraftKings 41% ownership coming into Brunson, 30% chance of being optimal, 26% ownership coming into Quickly, 15% chance of being optimal. We do get a pretty solid drop-off in production for Quickly when he shares the floor with Brunson and Randall, so that's worth keeping in mind. But you also should get plenty of minutes from him. So kind of evens out a little bit. But after those 2 guys, certainly if you can get to some Julius Randle, by all means, he is very expensive though. So, that's going to drive the ownership down a bit at 10,500. Like you said, with Robinson in tournaments at 5,700, the upside's certainly there, but there's no shortage of other centers that look similar as well.
Yeah. I find this Knicks team to be fascinating for today.
Yeah.
I am getting to go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I got nothing.
I just wanted to quickly double check because I don't remember exactly what it is, but with Randall and Brunson on the floor this season, Quickly is at, I think it's like 0.75, 0.8. 0.63 DraftKings points per minute in 182 minutes, 11.4% usage rate, 9.4% assist percentage.
Woof. I did really enjoy that you said you were going to quickly double check. That was a good play on words there for this one. That's fucking bad, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those where, it's going to come up, but, that's the direction that you expect his production to go when he's playing with both of those guys. And so, I don't remember who, somebody in chat had made the good point, because I had mentioned it the other day, that his numbers really go down when Julius Randle's on the floor. And someone had said, well, what about when he's out there with Randle but not with Brunson? And it was like, all right, well, he goes from 1.05 overall or whatever he is to 0.9. That's not that bad. But that also means when you add Brunson, because I think what it is, he's 0.75 with Randle.
Okay.
But that's, including both sets of those. When it's Brunson and Randle, it's the really bad, 0.63, which it makes sense. But he is also still going to be out there for a bunch of minutes. It does make me a little bit concerned, though, at that ownership, because it kind of seems like he's being projected to play a bunch of minutes, which is going to happen, but then also not really take a hit in terms of what he does in those minutes.
Yeah, I was a little surprised, actually. I didn't get he's not as favorably priced on FanDuel, but I'm quite a bit under the field on quickly, and I have not made any sort of wholesale adjustment. So there's a decent chance that I would get to like 0 of him on the FanDuel side. I am, however, getting to all of the Jalen Brunson. I think he looks incredible today. But it's just easy to like the Knicks. And then don't play anything on the Knicks bench. That also feels like a pretty safe statement to make.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
All right. Let's move it on to game number 6. The Milwaukee Bucks, 3-point dogs in Toronto, 230 total. Bucks are on a back-to-back. We got the late news that Drew Holiday wasn't starting, which was really awesome for me. I didn't like the feel of playing Drew Holiday yesterday, but was doing it anyway, and made it really easy to just have absolutely 0 of him when he wasn't starting. I didn't even touch my projections for Milwaukee. Whatever I had in to go into lock yesterday is what I have in right now. If you want to play Giannis, by all means, there's nothing to talk about for Milwaukee otherwise, especially if it is the same rotation as yesterday. Because if it is, then it's really Giannis and no one else.
Yeah, if Holiday's still coming off the bench, obviously you can very safely ignore him at 8,100. If he's starting, I wouldn't say ignore, but he only played 19 minutes last game, so I'm a lot more hesitant. Even if Drew Holiday is starting today, I'm much more hesitant to go to him than I was yesterday when I assumed he was going to start. Because if he was starting yesterday, there was just a good chance that he's going to go out there and play 30 plus. Seeing him come off the bench yesterday, where they're clearly looking to limit him and him playing 19, even if they move him back to the starting lineup here, it's like, all right, is he playing like 28, 26? What are we doing? So it makes it really difficult to want to get there one way or the other. If he is coming off the bench, then it does make Giannis look even a little bit better just because now he's playing a ton of minutes without either of Drew or Middleton. So that would make him look even better. But he's really the only guy here that I find interesting. Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, both certainly playable in tournaments. You get a solid ceiling from them, but also pretty much correctly priced.
Yeah. Even if you're projecting Drew for 30 minutes or 32 minutes, he's going to look like an average play for today's slate, just given how huge it is. So hopefully he just stays out of there and you can just sort of cross them all off. It's weird. It was almost like easier to get to Giannis yesterday than it is today.
Yeah.
I got nothing else for Milwaukee.
It normally is like that. We talk about that a lot on short slates, especially when Giannis is pulling, like the 12K price tag. Because the thing is, like yesterday, you didn't have all these guys that were $2,000 less expensive that are capable of scoring 60, 70 fantasy points. Today it's like, well, first you need Giannis to go get like 70, 75, and then you need none of LaMelo, Harden, Morant, Mitchell, all of these guys to have the game.
You need Donovan Mitchell to not have 100 fantasy points or whatever he ended up with.
Exactly.
We go to the Toronto side, kind of like talking about the Knicks. I don't understand why their ownership looks like it does right now, but I would like way more Toronto, please. 2% going to Siakam at 10-3, 6 on FanDuel at 10K flat. OG Anunoby's at 10%. Everybody else is low single digits. These guys are back to playing a shit ton of minutes aggressively with really no one else stopping them from doing so. I just want the starters, and I want them unquestionably more than we're projecting from an ownership perspective.
Yeah, I just don't really get it with this team. I mean, Pascal Siakam in particular, like the guy averages 1.3 fantasy points per minute, give or take. He's going to give you 38 to 40 minutes at least if the game's competitive. And every slate now, people are just like, yeah, no, I'll go somewhere else. And again, there are plenty of other good options. So I'm not saying like you should just be jamming Siakam and ignoring all of the other guys in that price range because they look good too. But it's the playing time. Like, like James Harden, you can count on to play similar minutes, but he's not quite as good on a point per minute basis. But he's at least comparable from a playing time standpoint. But like when you compare Ja Morant to Siakam, you're giving up like 4 or 5 minutes by going to Morant. LaMelo's giving up 3 or 4 minutes. Most guys are just giving up several minutes to Siakam. Even Giannis gives up 4 or 5 minutes and is $2,000 more expensive. Obviously, he's a better point per minute guy, so it closes that gap. But I just don't really get why Siakam has been getting slept on so frequently. Then you can move to the other guys, and Trent, Anunoby, Barnes, Van Vliet, they're all just very reasonably priced here. Van Vliet in particular would, I think, be the second guy for me at 2% ownership. I like getting there. I think he's a very obvious Jalen Brunson pivot if you wanted to get away from Brunson in a lineup. OG Anunoby has very good positional eligibility on DraftKings, shooting guard, small forward at only 6,400. I mean, these guys just all look good.
I couldn't agree more. I don't really have too much else to add. Like, I got to 28% Siakam on FanDuel on my initial run. He's 6% owned, and like I couldn't be happier with that sort of breakdown. I'm getting to OG Anunoby. I'd be happy. Like, I don't want a ton of Van Vliet on FanDuel at 8K. I don't love that price tag. But again, he played 36 and a half minutes on Monday. Like, if those minutes are there. Barnes, Trent. I just want these guys because they're back to just playing all of the real dudes and not as much of everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, these were the bench minutes in their last game. 12 for Precious Achiuwa, 11 for Christian Koloko, 8 for Thaddeus Young, 9 for Malachi Flynn, and 4 for Chris Boucher.
It's incredible. Just play the Raps today, especially with Milwaukee. Like, however you want to like account for this, it just makes me feel better. Milwaukee on a back-to-back having to go into Canada. Like, that's a lot of additional work that they got to deal with and play on a back-to-back in a different country. Like, I don't care if Canada's essentially the same spot, but it's a great spot for Toronto too. Anything else for the Raps?
No, but I just found out that apparently Washington, instead of playing Sam Howell this weekend, is going back to Heineke, so I'm thrilled with that.
Fantastic.
They are eliminated from the playoffs and playing a guy who will not ever start a game for them again, most likely.
Smart. Seems smart to me. You know what else
Rivera
is smart?
may not actually believe they're eliminated, though, so who knows?
He might not have a job either.
Yeah.
Cut the giant check for Sean Payton. Just get it over with.
So, like, when I saw that, the rumor, I was just like, oh, good, another, like, retread coach. But I've also heard that he's already basically put together, like, an all-star staff. And and so then my next thought was like, well, Dan Snyder of 10 years ago would do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Dan Snyder tried to sell the team, probably not. So,
right. Wentz is inactive, thank God. Huh. Anyway. PrizePicks is the presenting sponsor of this show. If you are interested in up to $100 on an instant match deposit bonus, then you should go ahead and click the link in the description. Make that deposit. They'll match it up to 100. So even if you've only got like $30, they'll match it with $30. But put the full 100 in, try to get the match. You're putting together player props. If you could hit 5 on one card, you'll net up to 10x your entry fee. And you can do it across sports: NBA, NHL, NFL, college basketball, golf, soccer, women's Euro, which good luck if you've got a line on that one. Adam and I are going to talk about some points props for right now. And we're going to start it off. Who would be the most interesting guy for us? We'll go straight to Julius Randle, over under 28.5 real points.
Projections are not loading. You said 28.5?
Yes.
Under. We have 27.
Yeah, I got him at 27.8. So I would take the under as well if I had to. Is our boy? No sign of Siakam, unfortunately, at least not yet. How about Joel Embiid at 33.5?
Slight under, we have 32.5.
I got 34 too, so I would be willing to take that over, but I could probably find a better spot somewhere else. Final one that we should look at here. I'm going to go rebounding prop. Actually, does he have a points prop? This is your boy. Doesn't have it. That's a shame. I was looking for a Desmond Bane prop, but he only has a rebounding prop for reasons that make no sense to me. So go Tyrese Halliburton, over under 19.5.
Gotta find it. Probably wouldn't take it, but we have it at 19.
20.5 for me, or 20.1 for me, sorry. Probably not a direction that I would be going, but that's PrizePicks, folks. Make sure you're using that promo code or the link in the description, because up to $100 is a really nice way to start a bankroll. Plenty of tools on Stokastic.com that could help you out as well. The Brooklyn Nets are 5.5 point favorites in Chicago, 235 total. For Brooklyn, probable tag on Royce O'Neal and on Markieff Morris. So kind of just business as usual for the Nets. Kevin Durant is 9% owned on DraftKings. The highest owned guy on FanDuel is Kyrie at 6. I don't really see a priority coming from Brooklyn. If you want to play Durant or Irving, by all means, but they just kind of look like they exist today.
Yeah, two more guys in that boat. The price tags on them are pretty favorable: 10K for Durant, 8,800 for Irving. But um, there's just like a lot of other guys that look similar to them. I think they are both good plays. I don't see like building around either one.
Yeah, I don't even see anybody that I'm just like, man, at this low ownership, like he's probably significantly not owned correctly. It's just like they just feel like a completely irrelevant thing. So we will move on because there are 24 teams on today's slate. Chicago Bulls, sizable underdogs at home. Love the total here. And Vooch, DeRozan, and Levine are playing some serious minutes. In particular, DeMar DeRozan, who's playing like 40 minutes a night. Levine is projected for 12% ownership on both sites. We're not really getting any ownership to anyone else. I would be happy to take GPP flyers on DeMar DeRozan. I would be happy to take one on Vooch, who's playing like 36 minutes a night. I kind of like Patrick Williams a little bit here, who's also playing, 30 plus minutes a night as of late. Not a very good per minute guy, but no ownership to speak of. I have a little bit of interest in the Bulls here, given the ownership.
Yeah, so I just wanted to quickly mention if $5,900 Ben Simmons with power forward eligibility is going to be 4% owned, I'm almost definitely going to be over the field there. As far as the Chicago side, though, Levine pulling 12% at 7,300, that looks good. Should play 34, 35 minutes, shooting guard, small forward eligible. Vooch at 7,400, 4% owned. Another very good, tournament pivot. The problem is that, he is more expensive than Carter. He's a lot more expensive than Bamba. He's $2,000 more expensive than Adams. So, you can see why the ownership is so low. But at the same time, you can probably just fix that elsewhere in your lineups and find, that money for Vooch, who does have a very, very high ceiling against this Brooklyn front court. DeRozan, 9,100, I think a little bit more difficult to get to just because you are starting to get like close to that James Harden level, Donovan Mitchell level for him. Not to say that he doesn't have a very high ceiling still, but I think he's just a little bit more difficult to get to than Vooch and Levine are. If you want to fill in lineups with some Patrick Williams, fine. But I think to me, Vooch and Levine are the guys I would like to get to.
Do you have anybody that you would recommend today, not based on a projection?
Yeah, later when I actually build my lineups, what I do is I just start pulling names out of hats, and that's what I use. But for the shows where I'm not trying to give away my edge, I'm just talking about projections.
Interesting. Okay. I read tarot cards. It's crazy how accurate that gets.
They didn't tell you Marcus Smart was going to get ejected, though.
No, they did not. I also had a really good joke ready here that I am not allowed to say on the stream, so I'm back.
I can't wait to find out what that was.
It won't be as good after a couple of minutes, but it would have certainly gotten me to not have this job any longer. The Portland Trailblazers are 1-point dogs in Minnesota, 229 total for the Blazers. Not too much going on here. Yusuf Nurkic is probable. Gary Payton finally made his return on Monday. Questionable right now. I assume he's playing, but we shall see. Justice Winslow out with an ankle sprain. Shocking. Nas Little still out with his right hip fracture. Normally, if you look at any game other than Monday's box score, you'll see most of the Portland starting lineup playing a shit ton of minutes, and it's kind of exactly how I'm projecting them here. That said, no real ownership coming in on the DraftKings side. Lillard and Simons are both about 15% owned on FanDuel. They both have much better prices on FanDuel than they do on DK. This feels like a good spot against Minnesota. I was a little surprised to see the total be as low, but I guess that's what happens when Towns isn't around. I kind of like some of these Portland starters in GPP plays, especially if this game is as competitive as the line implies. But no priorities here.
Yeah, same boat. Certain game that should have a lot of production, but also just a game where you have a relatively healthy team and it's a 12-game slate. So if you get to some Dane, get to some Nurkic, like that looks fine. I do like the $6,200 price tag on Nurk. Just again as one of those center pivots off of, say, Wendell Carter Jr., but nothing that I would really prioritize.
It's just another one of those things. You mentioned Wendell Carter Jr. I still look at it as Adams, but either way, sure, it's just one of those situations.
Adams is just cheaper, so like
right.
He's 800 cheaper, but yeah, same thing.
I just see those two guys pulling all of this ownership, and it's like, oh my, like you might be able to. You'd probably be more profitable in the long run by just like unchecking their names and just playing all of the other centers.
Maybe. Like the thing is, I actually think, especially Adams and Bamba, I think are at their salaries extremely good plays.
Yeah.
Carter, I think, is good, but like that's the other reason I guess that I keep using Carter. He's the more expensive of the two, and I just have kind of more question marks about him at his salary. But like, it's like the perfect example of they are definitely going over owned relative to their chances of being optimal. But with it being a 12-game slate, there's going to be so many spots where you can just click in a 4% owned really good play in a couple of spots and be like, oh, okay, well, I'm different anyway. Like if I have, I don't know, Donovan Mitchell and Ben Simmons both at 4% owned, do I really care if I have Mo Bamba or Steven Adams at that?
No, you're absolutely right. On the Minnesota end, the ownership is coming in on the FanDuel side, not the DraftKings side. Gobert at 9%, 6,500. What a fall from grace in his price, by the way. But he is 9% owned. That's the most ownership coming in on the DK end. Kyle Anderson is 26% owned on FanDuel at 5,600. That seems wildly too high. Edwards and Russell are both around 15. That seems like sort of the right marks. I would be trying to get away from any sort of quarter of the field lineups of Kyle Anderson for today. But at the same time, I'm happy to get a couple pieces of the Minnesota starters. I just like the idea of having the starters in this game because of the fact that the line is Portland +1. Like it's in theory, the most likely game to be competitive. And it's two teams that generally play their starters pretty heavily.
Yeah, and it's a game that should be pretty high scoring as well. It just strikes me as one of those games where it's tough to get to any individual pieces, but then you're just going to be like watching the slate and it's just going to be like, oh, 5 guys from the Portland game or, have the fire emoji on DraftKings. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting game to get to as well. Gobert is down to 6,500. Don't love the minutes, but there's also, games where he's playing well, does pick up more minutes. So I don't want to write him off too much. If Naz Reid is out, I think that is beneficial for him. If Reid is back, I think those minutes get a little bit scarier. But 6,500, a pretty decent price tag there. Edwards at 94 is going to be tough to get to, but certainly gives you a nice ceiling. Russell at 7,600, kind of the same thing. So I understand why there's not much ownership coming in, but at the same time, there's a good chance one of these guys just has a good game.
I don't have anything else here to add for Minnesota.
Nope.
The Houston Rockets are 7-point dogs in New Orleans, 223 total. Houston is essentially at full strength, just no Jayshawn Tate. You get Jalen Green, KPJ around 10% owned. Same with Jabari Smith. Jabari Smith is 14% owned on the FanDuel end. And this is another team where exactly how their rotation's playing out. Their starters play basically the same minutes every game. All of the backups are very much set in their role. I'm happy to get any individual piece for Houston, but I don't see any priorities.
Yeah, I'm happy anytime I get the Şengün, Porter, Green. Green's pulling the most ownership right now at 6,600 on DraftKings at 11%. Porter right behind him at 9%. Jabari Smith's really cheap too at 4,800. We have seen his playing time trend up a bit recently as he has seemingly started to adjust to the NBA and not play like absolute garbage when he's out there. We've been seeing more of those games where he does get 31, 32 minutes. So that's been good to see. Last time out played 32 and a half. We had 42 minutes from Kevin Porter last game. Typically, you're projecting 34, 35 for him, but interesting to see that they just completely let him go in that game against Dallas. Jalen Green, you can expect 34, 35 minutes as well. So all of those guys, pulling 5 to 10% ownership, and I think all 4 of them make sense. There's nothing else really that I could see getting to on this slate. Like Eric Gordon should play 28 to 30 minutes. He's cheap. He's also non-existent from a fantasy standpoint. Tari Eason's very good from a fantasy standpoint, and he's 3,600. But basically just playing the non-Jabari Smith minutes, which knocks down how many minutes he can play. He's, I guess, kind of similar to Jalen Smith in that, to Jalen Smith. He's getting 150 ownership, and his role is still basically just play the minutes Jabari Smith doesn't play. But I think the difference is that when you have Turner playing the 5 versus Smith playing the 4, Turner's just the one that's more likely to get in foul trouble.
Particularly against Joel Embiid.
Right.
Josh said Gobert was good. I knew better. It's almost like the guy that's going to be in the Hall of Fame that got traded for all of the picks and half of a team was looked at as good from other teams too.
Yeah. I mean, typically when an organization gives up their entire future for somebody, it's not because they're not good.
When he's not good and then gets elected to the NBA Hall of Fame. That'll also be another interesting. That's the hill that I would want to die on. This guy stunk.
To be fair, basketball pretty much allows anybody that was average or better into their Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but he's much higher than that bar.
Yeah, no, I agree. But
yes, Helms, I did say Hall of Fame.
What's his basketball reference odds right now?
It's got to be so high. Are you going to beat me to it?
I don't know.
21%. Yeah. Where is it?
Wow, that actually surprised me. He's like almost double Andre Iguodala.
It's so weird to those are such different guys.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, multiple time All NBA guy, 7 straight years of first team All NBA, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year award winner. Yeah, he's going in.
Well, maybe. Probably not.
Wait, what do you mean probably not?
He has a 21% chance.
Yeah, I don't put a lot of stock into the Hall of Fame probability on Basketball Reference.
Yeah, I'm just saying though, if we assume it's relatively decent.
Yeah. He's the type of guy that's going to rank lower there. Right. Rondo is at 60%. Rudy Gobert, I would take Rudy Gobert's career over Rondo's career 100 times out of 100 in terms of upper echelon talent.
I don't know about that.
Dude, I promise you this. I don't even think it's particularly close.
Rondo was on winning teams.
Don't do this. One All NBA third team for Rondo. 60% likely to make that's just insanity. Insanity. I don't know why I'm crazy. This is not my opinion. This is just how people with his pedigree go. Multiple All NBA teams and multiple Defensive Player of the Year awards is just going to get him in. That's
my favorite part of Gobert is always people you overlap. It feels like it's the same people that cry nobody in the NBA plays defense, and then they say Rudy Gobert sucks.
Yeah, it's Rondo won a title and was a key player on the team. The amount of fucking people that could have that sort of career does not put them in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. The fact that Rondo's at 60% is insane. I don't even know what could possibly be driving that. That's really wild.
Did he win at Kentucky?
Rondo?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I have no idea. I feel like he barely played.
Yes, I have no idea. I just know that there's plenty of guys where I'm just how the hell are they likely to be in the Hall of Fame? And then I remember that it's the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, plus he ended basketball. I mean, Gobert's going in for sure. Pelicans. We don't have the time for this kind of discussion. We'll save that for tomorrow. Pelicans. No Brandon Ingram, no Larry Nance, and no Zion Williamson for the next couple of weeks, which is kind of a bummer. Trey Murphy pulling some big ownership on both sides. Najee Marshall getting a bit of love, more so on FanDuel than on DraftKings. CJ McCollum is, in my opinion, probably under-owned at 19%. It's hard to not want to get to the Pelicans because their two highest usage players aren't playing today.
Yeah, forgot we had to get back to talking about DFS, but it's a good spot too. So makes them look pretty good. CJ McCollum coming in at 8,200, certainly a favorable price tag. Joe Val at 6,300 is still going to look pretty good with Larry Nance out and with Zion out. You can expect Joe Val to play more minutes. The backup minutes should go to some combination of Hernan Gomez and Jackson Hayes. We had seen Jackson Hayes take on a much bigger role in the last couple of games where Zion was out. Hayes coming in at 3,700 center only. Hernan Gomez 3,800 center only. Both guys are getting no ownership. Hernan Gomez is 1%. Hayes is 0.2. One of them is going to be a good play, you would think, unless they go with just a true Joe Val plays 30, Hernan Gomez plays 10, Hayes plays 8 type rotation. I think there's a pretty good chance one of those two guys ends up being a good play in tournaments.
I'm going to end up having so much more of this Pelicans team than we're currently projecting. Although on FanDuel, the price tags and everything are a little bit easier to get to, but I just like getting to all things Pels to start. And then Joval is a giant question mark that I want generally, especially if
I don't
he's
think
going
that
to be.
big of a question mark.
I don't know what to make of him any longer.
How so?
Like, this is a spot where in the past we would have been like, oh, Joval's playing 36 minutes tonight. And like,
But I think he's playing like 28.
Yeah. Like, I like him and all, but there was a time where it was like, yo, you don't have a choice. You got to get to Joval today against Houston because he's just going to nuke. And now it's like, I don't know. Willie Hernangomez played 24 minutes and had 40.
Right. But I mean, at 9%, I mean, really, to me, if Valanciunas is going to be 9%, Hernangomez is going to be 1, and Hayes is going to be sub 1, I'm fine just setting the max 1 rule and just like running through these guys in lineups.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I got 17% of Joval on FanDuel projected for 10% ownership. I like him, but there was a time where we would have been projecting him for 34 minutes, and this would have been staggering.
Right.
And then I'm getting more CJ than anything else. 8,600 on FanDuel. I like 8,200 on DraftKings even more.
Yeah. So in the last 2 games where Nance and Zion were out, Joval was in. Jackson Hayes played 28 and then 31 minutes. He started the second one of those, I believe, alongside Joval. Hernangomez 18 minutes in the most recent one. So, yeah, I just think the whole center position for this team is really interesting. Then you get to the wings, Trey Murphy at 4,800, Najee at 4,800. They're both going to look good. McCollum obviously looks great. This is a team that I expect to be getting a lot of.
Anything else for the Pels?
Nope.
On to the 10 o'clock games now. 3 of them. The 2-hour gap. The slate is just massive. I honestly wouldn't be mad if they just lopped the 10 o'clock games off of this slate and this was a 9-game slate that ended at 8 o'clock. That would be perfect. Perfect. Wouldn't change anybody's day or anything. Makes playing the slate much easier. Gives you a standalone 10 o'clock 3-game slate. Like, that is a much better way to put this slate together than making it 12 games. Just listen to me. FanDuel, DraftKings. I'll contract for you. I think I'm allowed. Detroit, 7-point dogs in Golden State, 230 total.
Hang on, I just want to answer this in chat. TTLD forever said, "Are we being cute by playing Hernangomez?" Sort of, but also like not really if he's going to not get any ownership because the
Jalen Smith's getting 10%.
What?
Right, exactly. Smith is getting 10%.
Right, and like Jalen Smith has power forward eligibility, but like you're getting like 10% on Jalen Smith, who averages like 1.1-ish fantasy points per minute without turnover on the floor, expecting him to play like 16 to 22 minutes. Hernangomez this year without Zion and Ingram is averaging 1.32 DraftKings points per minute, and now he's playing the Rockets. The big question here, though, is he ahead of Jackson Hayes, which I don't know the answer to. But like, if you guarantee that Hernangomez is playing 18 to 20 minutes here, then no, you're not getting too cute because he projects as like a 6x play.
Are you brokenhearted that we're going to be without Marvin Bagley for a couple weeks?
Yeah, it tears me up.
Yeah, no Isaiah Livers here as well. We know what the Pistons do, and it's just not play a ton of minutes and play a bunch of guys that aren't very good at basketball. 12% owned Isaiah Stewart is the highest owned guy on DK. He's a $5,500 power forward center on FanDuel, but $4,800 for Beef Stew in this matchup. I kind of like it with no Bagley there. I'm surprised that he's not getting a little bit more love. He's a guy that I got to in a bit more lineups on the FanDuel end. If I'm going to anyone here, it's Isaiah Stewart.
I think Stewart and Duren both should benefit from Bagley being out. It helps to solidify the Jalen Duren minutes, not having Bagley behind him, and it gives Isaiah Stewart backup center minutes. We had seen Bagley, out previously, and instead of just sliding Nerlens Noel into the backup center role like I'd actually expected them to, they moved Isaiah Stewart into that role. Started staggering his minutes with Jalen Duren. We saw that in the second half last game as well. Nerlens Noel played 6 minutes of garbage time, but as far as the actual rotation went, you had Isaiah Stewart playing the non-Jalen Duren minutes. So it makes both of those guys look better than they otherwise would. Duren only center eligible, so clearly you have that opportunity cost. But again, 6% ownership for him certainly makes him a pretty strong tournament pivot. Isaiah Stewart with power forward eligibility is pretty easily my favorite guy to get to from this team.
Anything else from the Pistons?
Jaden Ivey's minutes have been up a bit. Had, I believe, some foul trouble last game, but at 5,500, I don't mind taking some shots there either.
No major ownership coming into Golden State where they're without Steph. They're still without Andrew Wiggins. They're without Kuminga, Iggy, JaMychal Green, James Wiseman. They actually only have 9 bodies for today, which is interesting. But if you can get to Clay, DiVincenzo, Poole, Draymond to a degree, any one of the starters, I think that all looks good. I like Thompson, DiVincenzo, and Poole the most. Sticker shock on DiVincenzo, but I think it just makes some sense. We've got Looney projected for 31% ownership on FanDuel. I'll run away from that heavy of a number. Poole only at 9%, even at 8,400. I'd have some interest there in GPPs. I like some of these starters because they're just going to have to play a bunch of minutes for Golden State today, but kind of scary against the Pistons.
Yeah, still reasonable price tags, though. I mean, you should get mid-30s in minutes from Poole, from Thompson. Both very reasonable salaries. We know Jordan Poole is going to shoot a ton. We know Klay Thompson is going to actually make shots. So, it would be great if Thompson just took Poole's usage, but we know that's not going to happen. DiVincenzo at 6,100, like you said, that's a high price point when you think of the name, but at the same time, it's kind of just backed up by the fact he's likely to play low to mid-30s and give you, 0.85, 0.9 fantasy points per minute. Draymond pretty much always fine. The starters here look good.
I don't really have anything else to add, and we're running short on time. So we're going to go to Miami very quickly. 4-point favorites in LA. Q-tag on Duncan Robinson, Dwayne Dedmon, and Udonis Haslem. Everybody else is available. It normally is. Highest owned guy on DraftKings is 0.9%. Highest on FanDuel is 3.9% owned. Bam. I don't expect to get to anybody from Miami with any sort of volume.
No, I mean, it's obviously a good matchup, but the problem is just that this team's been banged up for so long. Specifically, Jimmy Butler has just decided not to play basketball for so long that, Bam's up to 8,700, where it's like, yeah, sure, that's a perfectly reasonable salary until you think about all of the guys like 6,500 and below that we've talked about that look good today. It just becomes a question of why are you allocating that extra money to Bam? You need that very specific 55-point game from him because you're just going to have these cheaper centers that have big games. Butler at 9K, Hero at 8,900, all just very difficult to get to.
On the Lakers side, we got a Q-tag on Lonnie Walker, Q-tag on LeBron. Obviously, AD still out. Lonnie Walker's missed the past 2, so that's kind of interesting whether he's in or out, but there's no ownership coming to anyone on the Lakers, and outside of LeBron, I don't really think there should be either.
Yeah, I don't really think there should be either. 7,600 for Westbrook's okay, but there's a bunch of guys that look okay. This game is just kind of uncomfortably unappealing.
Yes, it is. Closing it out, the Atlanta Hawks are 1.5-point dogs in Sacramento, 243 total. So the Kings are going to be the late night hammer once again. Atlanta is without Clint Capella in this one. Otherwise, everybody else is back. These guys played massive minutes on Monday in the double OT game. For now, no real ownership coming to anybody. 6% is the most for anyone on DraftKings. You get John Collins to 12% on FanDuel. And this is another case where I'm okay sprinkling in the starters, the DeJounte Murrays, the Trae Youngs, John Collins if you need to, but I don't see anybody that immediately just stands out as an overwhelming priority.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of guys pulling 4 to 6% ownership, and I think I agree with it. If you getting to low own Trae Young against the Kings feels great, but again, there's just so many options in that range. Same goes for Collins. Murray's cheap. Okongwu at 5,800 certainly is another center in that range, not getting ownership that does look okay. So, yeah, just a bunch of guys here that look good, but that also I wouldn't expect to be my highest owned guys or anything.
Yeah. It's obviously a great spot. So, I like getting small pieces of Atlanta everywhere, but it's any random starter for me and probably not a ton of Bogdanovich off the bench. And on the Sacramento side, then, I left the exact same rotation in that I had for yesterday. We're not going to know what their actual injury report looks like until 4:30 today. So Barnes pulling a lot of ownership, sure. Seems like Sabonis, Fox, Barnes, Herter, Murray, maybe not Monk after yesterday's performance, but any one of the starters here, again, because of this total, I'm very interested in Sacramento.
Yeah, it's just the pricing on the guys that you would makes it a little difficult. I love getting Sabonis because he's just so good. But where he's center only on DraftKings, that opportunity cost is so high to get there. De'Aaron Fox to 8,500 is fine, but again, there's just a lot of guards. I think that the wings become interesting, where Barnes is 4,800, Herter's 53, Murray's 41, but those aren't really the guys that you're ever going to feel comfortable with from Sacramento. So I think this is just a really weird game where it's a very, very fantasy friendly game, but the pricing and positions also just kind of makes it so there's a huge downside to a lot of the plays that you would normally want to get to.
Anything else you want to touch on?
Nope.
Anything else going on for you before the deeper dive?
Go and get a new mic.
There we go. I've heard that before. So we'll see if that actually happens.
Actually doing it this time.
NFL strategy show coming up next. Thank you to PrizePicks for being the sponsor of this one. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, notification bell, all that good stuff. Adam and I will be back 4:45 Eastern for the deeper dive where we're ripping through all 12 of these games again. Good luck tonight, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Peace.